Okay, there you go. It's connected well.
Okay, well, what Patricia asked me to do is to talk about what I said yesterday. And I'm going to do that, to shorten it up a little bit, and then I'm going to follow that with a little bit of an update. And so I started off by saying good evening, the usual sort of stuff. And I talked about the chaotic weather patterns that we're seeing over the Southwest Pacific. And then I asked if anyone leaves on Passage Friday, which of course was today. So if you left, you could ignore that remark. But anyway, either way, this Friday, or today rather, is not a very desirable day, as those of you that are in Fiji know it at this time. We've got two highs clashing at the date line, pretty much at the date line, and the resultant frontal band is running from Fiji all the way down to New Zealand with rather uncomfortable conditions because of that. Now, by lunch on Saturday, tomorrow, the western high moves into the central Tasman, and that's going to create headwinds from Fiji to New Zealand, or from New Zealand to Fiji, however you want to look at it. Headwinds, anyway, if you're going to New Zealand. And that's the result of the eastern side of that high. Now on Sunday, that high looks to broaden a bit and does weaken with southeast winds from Fiji down to about 30 south. Then it looks like westerlies from 30 south to New Zealand. That is preceding another frontal band, which is annoyingly going to be over New Zealand probably on Sunday, and it's going to mess up our Sunday hobby. Anyway, Monday, things are very complicated. Now, again, I said this yesterday. That front that I had said that was over Fiji Friday has retrograded and moved west. Models show it running from Vanuatu to 3170 west, and headwinds south of the axis. Now that's no good. Now remember, I said this yesterday, so I'm going to give you an update on that. So while a New Zealand front seems to run from 30 south to East Cape, again I'm talking about Monday, things look to improve Tuesday, Wednesday, that's the 15th and 16th, with the next high trying to be centered over New Zealand. And thus we'll hopefully see southeast winds from 20 south down to 30 south, and then hopefully southeasterlies continuing on to New Zealand. But there's that possible front over Fiji that's going to muck things up a bit for the northern boats. Now Thursday of next week looks nice, with that high solidifying over New Zealand and a fairly nice southeast wind on the Fiji-New Zealand passage. Things look pretty good through Saturday the 19th, with east-southeast winds from Fiji to 25 south, sounds nice, and east to northeast winds from 25 to all the way down to New Zealand, as the next frontal band may be in the mid-Tasman and on its way to New Zealand. Now, all of what I just said was yesterday, what I said yesterday, and what I just said. And in 24 hours, the models have changed their minds about a few things. Now, that front over Fiji that I talked about retrograding toward Vanuatu, on Monday, it is still sitting over Fiji. Now, there is an active trough over Vanuatu, but it's not the one I was talking about yesterday. The one I was talking about yesterday was connected to a depression that's just to the east of New Zealand, or trying to get to the east of New Zealand. Now, finally, on Tuesday, the band of, we'll call it trough slash front, does get to Vanuatu, but a large portion of it remains over Fiji. So we are going to have troughing conditions and some like to call it a frontal band over Fiji between now through Tuesday. And it's going to be off and on conditions. There'll be areas of Fiji that'll be pretty good. You wonder what we're talking about, but others are not. So anyway, most of the passage winds then are going to be a function of where you happen to be if you set sail in relation to the Tasman high that is ridging east to about 170 west. Now, this is Monday I'm talking about. So it's that new high moving into the Tasman. It's ridging all the way to 170 west. Now that means southeast winds are going to be from Fiji to, we'll call it about 25 south, and then southwest winds from there to New Zealand. So you could see the arc of the isobars on that high that's moving in. Now by Wednesday, Fiji still has the remains of the trough that we've been talking about, while the passage now from Fiji to Vanuatu, we have a bunch of boats that are wanting to go in that direction, Fiji to Vanuatu. My opinion, that should be avoided. Now, frankly, at the end of all this now, I don't really care to go much past Wednesday in talking to you about this weather, as long-range projections are indicating now a depression forming over Fiji. All of this activity that we're getting over the Fiji area, plus upper level encouragement, is continuing with pretty bad weather over Fiji. So it's looking quite possibly like a depression may form over Fiji. Now, I'll say that again. It looks like there's a possibility of a depression forming over Fiji or near Fiji. Now, what I just said is not locked in by any means, but I would certainly watch it very closely if I were you and you were thinking about leaving Fiji on the way to New Zealand. So I'm going to quit here basically, and we'll see what things look like tomorrow, what has changed tomorrow. The last thing I'll say is the Southwest Pacific is in a bit of a turmoil at this point. You'll remember I started off by talking about a lot of chaos in this area, and that's what it looks like now. Now that depression, if it does form, it could do two things. It can track to the southeast, in which case, unless you're in Tonga or Niue, it won't matter. But it's possible that it could track to the southwest, and that is not good. And the reason I'm thinking that it could track to the southwest if it forms is that we really don't have a high strong enough around the New Zealand area that could block the system. Typically that's what happens, and they tend to get shunted to the southeast. But right now, I don't see that high. That doesn't mean it isn't going to form, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does form, the way things are changing virtually every day, it seems. So anyway, I think I'm going to stop and pass you over to the chief, and we'll have another look tomorrow. And hopefully, if everything is working, we'll give you an update on what the future tends to look like. I know a lot of you are wanting to head south. Keep in mind we are in cyclone season. Yeah, just keep that in mind. But not quite there, but things. I said I would stop, and here I'm still going. There's been a lot of talk about La Nina. I don't know why there's been a lot of talk about it, because most of the modeling agencies that are monitoring what we're going to have are basically still calling off neutral conditions. And be frank with you, a lot of the weather that we've had around New Zealand in the last week or so are more like El Nino rather than La Nina. So anyway, even that is messed up. So I will stop now. Here's the chief.
Well, I've never heard him so confused one day to the next with what's going on. Very, very, very difficult, and that should be a warning in itself, really, to really look at how desperate you are to get home and what risk you want to take. So he'll be looking at the weather every day as he does, and we will certainly be on every night now that it is passage season and we know that you are wanting to go. I have no idea why streaming is on again, off again, but hopefully you will have tuned into this one. For the people that are new, there are a lot of comments about sailing to New Zealand on our website, www.ghradio.co.nz. The one that is quite detailed is in the weather section, obviously, called Sailing to New Zealand, and it covers all the different things that David and I looked at when we were sailing, the things that would disturb us, the things that we would want to think about, and the conditions that we would prefer to have. So have a look at that one, and there is also one very shortened version, Tonga to New Zealand. And when you're looking at, depending on where you are, Tonga and Fiji can tend to be taken together. Newcastle, there is white paper on Newcastle to New Zealand, but if you're in Vanuatu, then have a look at that one. Things are slightly different there because of the change in longitude. So have a look at those. If you have any questions, then probably best at the moment to either use streaming for the question or use the email ghradio@extra.co.nz. So that's it for this evening. I will ask if there's any questions on the radio, but boy, it is really difficult at the moment, so I suspect I'm not going to be able to copy anyone, but I'll give you the opportunity to try. I'm listening now. No, nothing heard, and as I say, if you are having trouble with the radio, don't be concerned. It is the solar activity that's disturbing everything. Electrical systems, in fact in America they put out warning for a lot of the electrical systems, particularly as they've got major areas with Florida being quite flooded at the moment. Lots of people, 3 million people I think, are out of power, but it's just not been very helpful for them either. Okay folks, this is it. We will be back again tomorrow, and hopefully conditions in the air will start improving. Cheers everybody. Gulf Harbour Radio clear.